Hey guys, thanks for joining us for this character journey, the Michonne edition. Been wanting to talk about this for quite some time. I'm sure I have elsewhere, probably Tumblr. Um, so Michonne, where we last saw her is, literally broken down and crying to her knees, and for very good reason. She's basically just lost her home, and now, yet again, her son. Uh, Rewinding back to season 3, when we first meet her officially. I'm not going to include that silhouetted figure who Andrea sees, who wasn't denied there at all.
Really?
No, they
Oh.
hadn't cast the actress yet.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that
Interesting.
was some lady in a
See,
hood.
guys, an ultimate fan. I don't even know everything about this show.
So when we see her with Andrea in season 3, she is very, I dare say, mute. She's very mute. She's very quiet, very stern. So as time kind of marches on in season 3, she seems very one note. She comes across as very one note. And apparently we learn later, some distance, that was very purposeful, because Michonne's very closed off purposely because of losing essentially her whole family and being the sole survivor. So that's a totally legit reason to be shut down, closed off, mute, and just overall grim. That's kind of what she was. I initially thought, it was just like some weird, angry black woman thing, and they didn't really know what they were doing with this character. But no, there was a grander plan, and I'm glad to see that unfold.
I thought she was just
Properly.
really distrustful. Like, everybody she had encountered in, the ZA turned out to not be trustworthy, and she was probably just doing the smart, rational thing, but kind of keeping everybody at arm's distance. That's the way I saw it.
But she was like mad all the time and stuff, and I was like,
I'd probably be mad all the time too if it was the ZA.
I know, but it's kind of it's a stereotype.
Sure.
And I was like, for me personally, I was like, don't need this in my life. But then, she shows up at the prison, and then we start to see, I don't think we see layers of Michonne until we see her at the prison, in my personal opinion. She is one note until she's one-on-one against Rick, and then she's working with these people, and then she has that drag out fight with the governor, and then it's just like she's just exhausted emotionally. She's emotionally exhausted at having Andrea betray her, and she realizes she's all alone, and she wants to change that. She wants to flip that around, and that's when we see that spark. That's when she, when Rick's he takes her sword, he's like, turn around, and she's just like this, and it was such a great moment to see that nuance of character, and that's when I was really more intrigued by her, in my personal opinion. About what I think. Yeah, that was a weird way to say that, but anyway. So a lot of things that come up about Michonne is, this sort of weird, bizarre notion that she has lack of emotion, that she just swings her sword at things and is all stabby and kill, kill, kill. I don't know what show they're watching, but we see Michonne be emotional more times than I can even count. Starting with the one I just said, where she's defeated with Rick and says, you need me, that he needs her help, which is true, but she was kind of pleading with him at the same time to need her assistance, and to accept it, more importantly. Then we see it again now, and I'm probably going to be missing a lot of stuff, because I don't have any notes here. I'm just recalling this on top of my head.
Yeah, we're freeballing it.
I'm freeballing this one, but I know Michonne so well, and I'm very familiar with the character, that I felt comfortable doing it. So there you go. Andrea dies. Michonne is crying and obviously not wanting it to be this way, and you hear I just remember when the camera pans back, and then on the other side of the door, then you just hear this sobbing. It's Michonne. Mm-hmm. She's losing her shit in there.
Yeah.
So we have that moment. Then we roll around to season 4, and when Daryl tries to convince her, well, it's because, he was being a really great wingman for Rick, but he was like, you don't have to keep going out there. And she's trying to convince him and herself that she needs to. And then fast forward to her getting injured and Maggie and Carl helping her, and then she's in that prison cell with Beth and Judith, and Beth is like, "Oh, she spit up. You gotta hold the baby." And Michelle's like, "No, no,
Yeah.
bro, I'm good. It's no for me, dog." And she's like, "No, no, you gotta hold this baby, man. I'm serious. I gotta change my shirt. It's gross." And she's like, all right." And then she starts just holds her.
That was I think for me like the scene that made me realize that there was something far deeper going on with it with her, just because that was such a bizarre reaction to being asked to hold a kid. I mean, even in like the ZA, it just seems to me that like most women, if like a woman is like, "Oh, here, hold the baby," most women are like wanting to. They're like, "Hell yeah, I want to hold the baby," and they're like playing with it and stuff. Her resistance was weird, and then like when she finally agreed to it and was holding the baby, the fact that she started sobbing, and not sobbing like without looking at the baby. She was like staring at the baby, like in its eyes. She was like staring at Judith in the face, right? And I was like, "Oh,
rests her head on it, like."
Yeah, and I think it was clear to most people at that point that she had lost a kid. I mean, that I interpreted it that way, like almost immediately. I was like, "Oh, she lost a kid, and this kid is reminding her of the kid that she lost, and that's what's going on." So, yeah, that was a great moment because it made her so much more interesting, And like now she's like a badass warrior plus a person who had something terrible happen to her that was, deeply personal and all that stuff. So it was a good way of illustrating it.
And then fast forward again to the fall of the prison, this place that she'd been, calling home, a home which she hadn't really even fully gotten a chance to enjoy because she kept going out on the road. And I think that was part of her regret. When she leaves the prison after putting down Herschel, she immediately sees the tracks of Carl and Rick, and she recognizes it instantly. She knows who it is. There's no doubt in her mind, and she chooses to go the opposite way, to like do that whole shutdown isolation thing because she thinks that would be easier. And she does this for about maybe 24 hours, as much as up to 48 hours before she sees, and I didn't really necessarily care for this part, but she sees this other black walker with dreads, and she's like looking like, no, not dreads, braids, really long braids, and she's looking like and she realizes that could be her, and then she kills 25 walkers in the field, and she just starts sobbing.
I don't know why, but I thought she was gonna die in that scene. Because like when I first saw it, she was looking at that walker for like way too long, and it like looked back at her, and I thought like, oh no, like it's gonna catch on or something. It's gonna be like that moment with Rick and Glenn when in the like second episode when they have the guts on them and they're like in the streets with hundreds of them around. I'm like, any second now, one of them's gonna catch on, it's gonna attack her, and it's just gonna be like all over. So I was glad that didn't happen because I was like, oh geez, this character's done. Like.
Well, I didn't think that at all.
That worried me.
I honestly, that's one of my favorite Michonne scenes. The way she's like handling the sword, and at one point it's just one handed, and she's just like, hey, and it's like you hear this bubbling up of emotion. I thought it was like really beautifully done, and then she just sobs openly, and then she cries again later when she's talking to Mike, when she's getting closer and closer to Carl and Rick. And then she sobs again when she finds them, and it's like a cry fest for Michonne. And I just thought that was kind of like amazing. She had like several different emotional breakthroughs, basically, which is a far cry from where we initially met her. So now emotions aside, and there's some other scenes obviously where she's displayed emotion, but I want to switch gears a bit to talk about Michonne's journey as a leader. Because we really don't, she backs Rick's play from the jump, right? She backs his play. Like, whatever Rick says the plan is, that she'll help him get it done. There's actually a scene in Gabriel's church when Rick and Abraham are about to go head-to-head over that bus. And Rick's like, you're not taking that bus. And then when Rick advances, she pulls her sword. Like, she starts to pull her sword out. Like, I guess it's on. It's on and popping, right?
You're talking about when it was the conflict between, like, him and Abraham, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Abraham was like, we have to leave because the cannibals are coming. And Rick's like, no, you're not leaving. And
he was like, try and stop me, and Rick stood up and started like going over to him like he was gonna get into a fight with him.
Well, if because I can't even tell how many times I've seen certain Michonne moments, but if you look at her in that scene, like she's waiting to see what Rick does, and when Rick advances, she starts to pull her sword out like it's on. And even before then, when Abraham brings up the idea of going to Washington, Michonne is like her breath is caught in her throat. There's a scene where they're all sitting down eating. Rick's looking at Judith, and Michonne is just staring at Rick like, what's he gonna say? Like, she clearly wants to go. She's not saying anything. She's gonna do whatever Rick wants. And then Rick says, it looks like it's a yes. And then she just goes, oh, thank God. Like, thank God he said yes. Like, but she wasn't gonna sway him one way or the other. She was kind of laying in wait.
I'm a dude, so I didn't pick up on any of this, but it makes sense now that you're explaining it, and I just didn't really
notice.
That's
why I'm here.
I'm just paying attention to, like, the violence, and, like, you know, I'm like, when's something gonna blow up?
Well, their power dynamic, obviously, I've always been attracted to as someone who not only studies this show, but who has wrote a crap load of fan fiction on these two characters particularly. We see it change. It changes around when we meet Aaron, and Michonne's like, well, we'll check to see if he's lying. We'll go see if his trailer's there. And Rick's like, there's nothing there. And Michonne's like, we can take care of ourselves, and I'm going to check it out. That's what I'm going to do. Just like, that was like the start. That was the start of it.
Just a side note, I love the fact that the way that Aaron and Rick met was by Rick walking up and punching him in the face so hard that
he totally
Aaron
did not deserve that.
Got knocked out and just fell on the ground.
So true. Such a guy thing.
And then, like, 2 seasons later, they're, like, sharing a trailer to have, you know, to, like, do a sleepover for, to go to this, like, lake with the supplies and whatnot. I just thought that was hilarious, like, a first interaction. But yeah, you're right, that is totally a guy thing to do. He's trying to establish dominance. I'm the leader, you can't fuck with me, blah, blah, blah.
That's when Michonne pulled him aside, like, well, what the hell? That's not what that look meant. You knew what that look meant, Rick. Like,
that was when Rick was he had basically like become a wild animal, right? Yeah. I mean, like he was a savage. Like he was a.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Michonne recognized that, and that's when she stepped up, like, "Hey, I'm calling the shots today, and we're all gonna go to Alexandria. So get your shit together." And then Rick was like, all right. Like, you know, like he grudgingly did it, but he fell in line. Like, he falls in line.
Sure.
And even then, like, you know, they had that side conversation away from the group where she was like, did you mean it? But, you know, it was already done. She already called that shot for it to happen. Oh, right. Even as recently, but right before they meet Aaron, when she's begging Rick to go to Washington, like, give me something to hold on to. She was still asking at that point. And Rick gives it to her. He says we're going to go to Washington, right? But when she sees that Rick's not really... You know, it's weird.
She also presented a very good point. And he's usually pretty receptive if somebody gives him a good argument.
That's true, but she doesn't take the reins, which is interesting.
No. Well, she knew that if she gave him he's a reasonable guy. She knew that if she gave a good argument, he would probably agree.
But she didn't really give him an argument in that barn. She just said, look, this is what we're going to do. Pack up your shit, because we're going. Everyone's going. Like, she didn't ask.
Yeah.
She changed. When there was something hard and concrete and tangible with Aaron... I know what I said. I didn't mean to say it that way. But she saw something tangible with Aaron. She was like, okay, it's a wrap for me. This is what it's going to be. And I'm glad that she did it. Like, it needed to be said. And I don't think anyone else was going to really step up to the plate and do that. So to me, that was like her first official moment as, you know, the co-pilot to Rick's pilot at that point. It wasn't Daryl. It wasn't Carol. It wasn't anybody else. It was her. She stepped into that role. And ultimately, it's Michonne who brings Rick back from the edge, like when she punches him the fuck out in Alexandria and he lost his damn mind. It wasn't going to be Daryl. It had to be her. And he says that to her, like, listen, if you tell me to do something, I'm going to do it. So that's why I didn't want to tell you, because you was going to tell me not to do it So
Just another side note. The other thing was like another Rick and Aaron thing when they were in that barn, like before they got to Alexandria fully. They were just like halfway there, and it's revealed that Aaron's gay, and you know, Eric is there with his broken leg, and Rick's like, they have to stay in separate parts of the barn, and Glenn comes up to him and is like, dude, I get that you want to keep us safe, but like, they're both unarmed, and one of them's got a broken ankle. You know, and just like looks at him, and Rick's like, okay. Like, he's just being so paranoid. Like, it's, you know, just another example of how far gone he was from being reasonable. He was just completely insane at that point.
Even then, Glenn was calm and rational. He still wasn't telling Rick what to do. It's Michonne who tells Rick, like, hey, this isn't gonna fly.
Glenn had a different tact, which, you know, sometimes worked and sometimes didn't.
Yeah, but I'm just saying in terms of Michonne's journey that she definitely she stepped in and took this leadership
She
role,
knew when to put her foot down.
Yeah, and not only that, like, considering where she came from as this total outsider, as someone potentially in enemy lines, to being the co-commander-in-chief, essentially, to eventually becoming, you know, Rick's, you know, lover, best friend / unofficial wife. I'm still waiting on that, but I just want to say that, you know, in terms of character development, character journeys, like, this has been a very tremendous and fascinating one, which is obviously why Michonne is one of my favorites. So,
anything else?
Viva Michonne!
Viva Michonne. Mm-hmm. On that note, if you guys like our content, please subscribe right here. Also follow us on Instagram at RLRichonne, and check out the brand new blog, thelivingrishonne.com, where we talk about stuff like this and all other shows that we watch and the entertainment industry in general. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.